I haven't really told many people about it, honestly, because it's something I seriously try to forget. It still gives me the total creeps just thinking about it, even now. But here it is, my story. There's a real nice quiet scenic creek not far from my house. It's a total hidden gem, just a ribbon of clear water winding through thick woods. All you hear out there are the rustle of leaves and the gentle lapping of water against the banks. I love driving my kayak up to it every once in a while on summer weekends. It's my sanctuary, a place where the outside world just melts away, and I can truly be alone with my thoughts. This one particular weekend was definitely one of those weekends. The weather was just perfect, sunny and in the 70s with a light breeze that barely even rippled the water. I'd kayaked down this creek a bunch of times, and I'd never ever seen anyone else out there. That's a big part of why I like it, actually, because I'm a pretty reserved person, and I really prefer doing things by myself, preferably with some privacy. The thought of sharing this peaceful spot with strangers always felt like a real intrusion. So I set out on the kayak not far from where I parked my car. It's just this gravelly dirt parking area right off the road, barely more than a wide spot, totally overgrown with weeds, and usually deserted. But get this. There was one other car that pulled in a few minutes after I did, a dark sedan I didn't recognize. That was super unusual. I'd never seen any cars except my own here before, and a little flicker of unease went through me. Still, I just brushed it off, figured I was overthinking. It's a public spot after all. About 20 minutes into my kayaking, just as I was rounding a bend where the creek got narrower and the trees were super thick, someone popped out from the woods ahead of me, coming up on the left, and walked right up to the edge of the water. He was an average height guy, wearing a faded t-shirt and cargo shorts, looking a little unkempt. He stopped and waved at me with this big, almost too wide smile. He put his hands on his hips and greeted me, his voice a bit too loud in the quiet air. It seemed like he expected me to stop and chat, to get into that casual riverside banter I totally avoid. I instantly knew I didn't like his smile. There was just something off about it, not genuinely warm at all. But my mom raised me to be polite to everyone, even when my gut was screaming otherwise, so I stopped paddling and forced a smile, greeting him back with a strained, "Hello there." Then came this awkward pause where he was just nodding his head with that closed lip smile, his eyes glued on me, and the silence just stretched out uncomfortably. I felt like I had to break it, so I blurted out, "It's a beautiful day out." He nodded his head again, this slow, deliberate move, and said, "Yep." Then, without missing a beat, asked where I'm from. That question felt way too direct, too personal for just a random encounter. I quickly made something up. From up north, just visiting. He clearly just couldn't hold any kind of real conversation, only giving me one-word answers or sudden questions. And that's coming from me. I'm not exactly a social butterfly myself. The urge to just move along, to escape that suffocating awkwardness, was overwhelming. I told him as politely as I could to have a great rest of his day, and without waiting for a reply, just kept going down the river, my paddle digging into the water with new urgency. Never in a million years did I expect what happened next. I thought I'd put a good bit of distance between us, but then I turned my head slightly, hearing a distinct snap of a stick or something not far behind me. My heart just gave this sudden lurch. There, not too far off, partially hidden by the dappled sunlight through the leaves, was the guy. A prickle of unease crawled up my spine, quickly turning into a jolt of alarm. My breath hitched. He was clearly trying not to be seen, moving all furtive and deliberate, like a predator stalking prey. A cold knot of fear tightened in my stomach, turning my blood to ice. I was too scared to call him out, terrified of how he might react, what he was even planning. So I just pretended not to notice him and kept kayaking down the creek, my strokes getting faster. I'd keep side glancing every so often, just a quick flick of my eyes to see if he was still there, and yep, he was. My isolated sanctuary had suddenly become a trap. I'd never wanted to see someone else on the water, another kayaker, a fisherman, anyone, so badly in my life. The sheer loneliness of the creek, which used to be so comforting, now felt like a terrifying vulnerability. I pulled out my phone, my hand shaking a little, to try and call my dad or my brother for help. My only thought was to get a lifeline to the outside world. But of course, as I already knew deep down, I had zero cell reception out there, totally swallowed by the thick woods and winding creek. The screen just showed a stark no service message, a cruel confirmation of how isolated I was. Still, instead of just letting him keep following me and probably attacking me, a chilling thought that had now totally taken root, I decided to just stop my kayak. It drifted to a halt. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my pounding heart, and turned around, facing him directly. Stop following me, I called out, my voice a little shaky but getting stronger with each word. If you don't stop, I'm calling the police. The man just stood there behind another big tree, a silent, unmoving silhouette, but he was clear as day, his presence menacing. He didn't move, didn't speak, just watched. So I decided to fake call the cops, hoping it would work. I held my phone up in the air at him, making sure he could see it. I see you there, I shouted, putting all the conviction I could into my voice. I'm calling them now. Then I went through the motions of a phone call, holding the phone to my ear, pretending to talk to the police, describing him, the spot, the whole situation. After what felt like forever, the man started to walk away. Slowly, at first, then deeper into the woods, just disappearing among the trees. Wow, it seemed to have worked. I turned around right away and started kayaking back up the way I came, as fast as I possibly could, my muscles burning from the effort and fear. Every single stroke was fueled by this desperate need to escape. I kept looking over my shoulders constantly, my eyes darting back and forth until I finally got back to where I launched the kayak. The relief when I saw my car was just immense. I made it safely. I checked all my surroundings, scanning the tree line, the road, every shadow, before stepping out of the water and carrying my kayak back to my car. The other car in that little parking area, that dark sedan, was still there, which was an ominous sign. But then I made a disturbing discovery that might have actually saved my life. Up until this point, everything that happened could have maybe been explained away as just a weird, unsettling encounter. But then, as I got closer to my car, I noticed broken glass glittering on the gravel near the back. And then the horrifying realization hit me. The back passenger side window wasn't even there anymore. It had been shattered, with jagged bits still clinging to the frame. My blood ran cold. I didn't take one step closer to my car. The implications were immediate and terrifying. He wasn't just following me, he had broken into my car. I stayed hidden in the woods, my heart pounding, and checked if I had any bars now that I was closer to the road. Miraculously I did, just a single bar flickering on my screen, and I called 911 successfully. I reported the whole incident, the man, the following, the broken window, and I told them, my voice trembling, that I was scared I was still being followed, that he might still be nearby. Waiting for the police to arrive felt like the longest, most tense moment of my life. Every rustle of leaves, every distant sound made me jump. It dragged on way too long, an eternity of vulnerability. But then, when their sirens finally wailed in the distance and their patrol car pulled into the dirt area, The relief was almost overwhelming. I finally came out from the woods, my legs shaky, and waved frantically at them. I pointed to the car, and 2 police officers, their faces grim, got out and went over to the vehicle. As they peered inside, they found him. The man from the woods, hunched down, waiting in the back seat of my car, hiding, just waiting for me to get in so he could grab me. It was beyond satisfying to see him arrested, his hands cuffed behind his back. Oh boy, he definitely wasn't smiling anymore. His face was a mask of shock and anger. I looked at him, and it almost seemed like he was avoiding looking at me as he was taken to the police car, his gaze fixed on the ground. I'm just so happy the man was dumb enough to think I wouldn't notice shattered glass all over the side of my car. That little detail, his carelessness, was what ultimately saved me. So the story I'm going to tell you happened about 4 years ago, like right now. I haven't really told many people about it, honestly, because it's something I seriously try to forget. It still gives me the total creeps just thinking about it, even now. But here it is, my story. It was a Monday evening, 4th of July. Man, what a day. I'd just finished my sophomore year in high school and summer was finally here. You know, that awesome feeling. Naturally, I got invited to a few cool 4th of July parties. The kind with bonfires, loud music, and all your friends hanging out. But get this. My parents had grounded me a few days before. Something dumb I can't even remember now. So I couldn't go to any of them. Ugh, it was the absolute worst. Instead, I was stuck at home. But I live in this neighborhood that's super connected, like everyone knows everyone's business, so my neighbors were having a party outside right there in the cul-de-sac. And my parents actually forced me to come outside for it, saying it would be good for me to socialize. Seriously? I'm not super awkward or anything, but I totally hate talking to older adults because I never know what to say. It's always just a bunch of how's school and what are your plans for the summer stuff. Luckily, I had this friend Eli who lived nearby, so I called him up and he came over. We just hung out at the party, trying our best to avoid the grown-ups. After just a few minutes at the party, we got super bored. Like, really bored. It just wasn't fun for us at all because there was no one our age around. Just a bunch of parents and their little kids running wild. We talked a little bit, mostly just complaining about how lame it was. Then Eli, out of nowhere, asked, "Doesn't Savannah live, like, down the street? We should totally go ding-dong ditch her." My eyes lit up. It sounded like the perfect way to ditch the boredom. I agreed to Eli's idea right away, and we were off, heading down the street, feeling a little rebellious and pretty excited. Just so you know, Savannah is that super popular girl that every guy in high school has a crush on. She was like the girl. It was already awkward enough that we were neighbors and would sometimes run into each other, but her dad was also my dentist. No joke. Talk about uncomfortable. Every checkup felt like a full-on interrogation. We made our way down the street, giggling and whispering like crazy. The sun started setting really quickly, painting the sky in awesome shades of orange and purple. Eli and I were cracking jokes about dumb stuff we found funny back then, just being typical goofy teenagers. Honestly, we were both pretty nerdy our sophomore year, way more into video games and comics than, well, ding-dong ditching. I eventually asked Eli if he even knew where her house was, because I'd never actually been to Savannah's place before, only knew it was down the street. After scanning all the houses, Eli started pointing to my west. He was pointing at this huge, sprawling house that looked pretty fancy, like something out of a magazine. We lived in a pretty average area in Michigan, mostly modest cookie-cutter homes, so houses like this one were genuinely rare around there. It really, really stood out. Anyway, we sneakily approached the house, trying to be all stealthy and cool. But get this, we were totally surprised that no one was home. No cars in the driveway, the lights were off, nothing. Just total silence. We both started checking out the house, peering through the windows. We figured she probably went on a trip with her family for the holiday. I suggested we just come back next week and do the ding-dong ditch then, since our target wasn't even there. Eli didn't listen, though. He just kept staring at the house with this mischievous glint in his eye. Then, before I could even say anything, he just walked right up to the front door, bold as could be. "Eli, let's go!" I hissed, my voice a panicked whisper. He just shushed me, telling me to be quiet as he tried the doorknob, and his face just lit up. "Dude, they left the door unlocked," he whispered, practically vibrating with excitement. Eli then suggested we just explore the house just for a quick look around, and that it would be super fast. Being the curious, and let's be honest, slightly dumb teens we were, we went right into the house. The second we stepped inside, it was like walking into a whole different world. It was dark and super cold, way colder than outside, almost unnaturally so. A weird musty smell just hung in the air. The silence inside was deafening, making every little creak and groan of the house echo. We both split up, checking out the enormous house, feeling a mix of thrill and apprehension. I went into every room on the main floor, peeking into living rooms, dining rooms, even the kitchen. But the more I explored, the more I started feeling super guilty. Like a heavy, sinking feeling in my stomach. Because, well, that was totally considered breaking into someone's house, right? And it wasn't just a prank anymore. Plus, we were totally invading the family's privacy, going through their personal space. Every single step felt wrong. After a few minutes of just thinking it over, right as I was about to suggest we bail, Eli started screaming. It was this sharp, terrified sound that just ripped through the quiet house. My heart leaped into my throat. I ran over to the screams, my blood running cold, and found Eli stumbling out of what I think was Savannah's room, his face pale as a ghost. "Why are you screaming?" I demanded, my voice shaky. He didn't answer right away, just grabbed my arm and started pulling me to the nearest bathroom. He practically shoved me inside, locked the door with a loud click, and then, his voice barely a whisper, breathless and trembling, he said, "There was someone watching me in the closet." My mind immediately tried to make sense of it. I tried reassuring him the person was probably just a family member who thought we were breaking in, maybe a relative staying over or something, but he immediately shot back, his eyes wide with fear. Why would he be hiding in a girl's room then? He totally had a point. From what I'd seen when I glanced in, the room's walls were all white, the bed covers were white, and it just overall gave off a super clear girl's room vibe. I became suspicious myself. That's when the real chill set in. That's when we started hearing footsteps coming toward the bathroom door. Slow, deliberate steps that sent shivers right down my spine. We pressed our ears against the door trying to listen, but then the walking seemed to stop, right outside our door. "I told you, Eli, to be quiet," I whispered fiercely, my voice barely audible. Someone started mumbling something outside the door shortly after, a low, guttural sound that made no sense at all. Then there was knocking on the door. It started out soft, just a gentle tap, but as it kept going, it got louder and louder, more insistent than frantic. It sounded like someone was trying to break down the door. The wood groaned under the assault. It started becoming a scene straight out of a horror movie when the person outside started screaming. It was a man's scream, raw and full of pure rage. Eli turned around in a panic and frantically tried to open the window behind us. He yanked and pulled, but it was bolted down, totally stuck. I thought we were dead. This was it. My eyes darted around the small bathroom, desperate. And then I saw it. A wrench right next to the toilet, probably left by a plumber. Without even thinking, I grabbed it and used it to smash the window, sending glass shattering outwards. We didn't hesitate. We jumped out of it and fell onto the bushes below, scraping ourselves up. I still managed to break my ankle, a sharp pain shooting up my leg, but we didn't stop. We scrambled up and ran out of there fast. Both Eli and I were so confused, so terrified about who that person was and what they wanted. It was a total nightmare. A few days passed and the family came back. I saw their car in the driveway. The whole incident had been eating at me, the guilt just gnawing away. I couldn't take it anymore. I knew I had to do the right thing, even if it meant getting into huge trouble. So I turned myself into the cops and admitted to breaking in. They asked me a few questions, taking notes. Later, they sat me down with my dentist, who was also the homeowner. It was so awkward, but I just had to get it all out. I started the conversation with, "Yes, I'm guilty. I broke in, but the guy hiding in your daughter's closet nearly tried killing me." I blurted out the whole terrifying story. My dentist, to my surprise, showed mercy and didn't press charges. I guess he could see how genuinely scared I was. However, he just started to become really anxious, his face going pale as he told me, his voice barely above a whisper. We never invited anyone to stay at our house. No one was supposed to be there. That sent another shiver down my spine. Still does, actually. When I was probably 13, my family and I were on our way home from a Wednesday night church service. My mom was in the driver's seat and I was behind her in the back. My 5-year-old brother was in the middle and my 10-year-old sister on his other side. We were just down the road from the church, but it was a country road and late, so there was no light and no one else on the road. We were just coming up to our turn when all of a sudden a car comes swerving from our turning spot. This little car was taking the turn so fast that they came into our lane and almost hit us. We swerved as they tried to get in their own lane before we collided. Unfortunately for them, they overcorrected and their car flipped and landed on the driver's side door in the ditch. My mom, of course, hits the brakes and immediately jumps out of the car to go help whoever was in there. She got about 3 steps away from our car and stopped dead in her tracks. My sister and I are sitting there with our mouths hanging wide open, having no clue what to do. All I could think is, this isn't actually happening to us. This kind of stuff only happens in movies. But why isn't my mom going to help the person? It was summer, so we had all our windows halfway down. I heard a person start yelling help from inside, and my mom starts moving again to help him. But for some reason, she stops again in the center of the road. Another car flies us behind us, and the guy doesn't hesitate to jump out and run up to the crash to help. The man gets to the car and starts prying the passenger door open so the guy inside can get out. I can see my mom wants to run and help, but it's like she can't move from that spot. The Good Samaritan that pulled up behind us is able to get the door popped open. The guy from inside crawls out the door and gets into a frog-like crouching position on top of the car. At this point, my mom starts taking shuffle steps back to the car. When I look back at the guy, he has this crazy look on his face. He looks directly at our car and my mom and launches himself off the top of the car and hits the guy who was helping him. He starts running for our car at the same time my mom turns and runs for our car. He must have knew he couldn't get there before my mom did because he changed directions and moves to the car behind us. My mom jumps in and locks our doors. Just as the guy jumps in, the empty driver's seat of the car behind us, he slams on the gas before he has even closed the door and almost hits us, taking off a second time. Next thing we know, the guy who was just carjacked runs up to my mom's window and starts screaming and knocking on the window. My mom is of course shaken and doesn't want to roll down the window, so she settles for cracking it so we can understand what he is saying. He is yelling, asking us to call 911 because his phone was in the car along with his girlfriend. So of course my mom starts searching for her phone to call, but because she is so frantic from what just happened that she can't seem to find it. So I take a break from keeping my little brother and sister calm and dial 911 on my phone and hand it to her. While she is explaining what happened to the 911 operator, we hear a woman scream down the road. The man that was at our window takes off running, and a few minutes later comes back with a severely scraped up woman in his arms that turned out to be his girlfriend. My mom unlocks the doors at this point, and he sets her in the passenger seat while we wait for the cops. The girlfriend told us that he noticed her while he was speeding off and tried to hit her, but she scratched and punched at him and while trying to plead with him to stop the car. He kept coming at her though and finally rolled down the window and pushed her out going about 60. The cops finally show up and talk to all of us to get our stories. While talking to one officer, he told my mom that the man had shot and killed a man behind some apartment complex. That's why he was driving so fast and trying to get away. When we finally got home, we were all told to go to bed, but of course I wouldn't be able to sleep that night. So I went downstairs to talk to my mom. I worked up the courage to ask her why she stopped running to the car when the other guy didn't. She told me she had such a strong feeling that she should stay in the car with us that it was almost like she could hear it. When she heard him start yelling for help, she ran to help again, but just like last time, she got the overwhelming feeling not to go to the car. To this day, I wonder what would have happened if my mom hadn't listened to that feeling. The man could have easily overpowered her and gotten to the car if she had been any further away. I should also mention the man was caught that night trying to steal a new car. He had already ditched the car he stole from behind us, so the thing that really helped him get convicted was that when the woman was fighting him off, she grabbed the wrap off his head before falling out. She didn't know she did till the police got there and found it by where she was pushed. He did go to jail, but I was never informed of how long or anything else, and honestly, I never cared to ask.